Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, February 11th. I felt compelled to do a follow-up video on something that I've been percolating for the last couple of weeks. As you guys all know, I've been on this incredible spiritual journey that I've only shared like glimpses of, only because what I'm experiencing is beyond what I can even comprehend, much less translate without sounding a little nuts. But I can assure you that all the information and what I'm doing is no different than what I did to the exoteric world, tearing apart the financial, political, Hegelian, psychological dialectics that have run this world based off of separation, scarcity, and sin, that have fed into the debt and death paradigm. My exploration into the esoteric world is equally as objective, but it's not in the sense that, it can be found in footnotes and corroborating other evidence. This is purely a spiritual journey, and one that I've had a lot of crazy experiences to the average person. I've mentioned my Kundalini awakening. I've mentioned my shaman initiation. I've a lot of the art and visions that I've been doing have been in this creative state, this quantum state, this spiritual state, this creative state, this abundant state. And it's completely separate than my logical, critical thinking, mechanistic, masculine mind. And as I've been exploring it, I've come across more synchronicities, more possibilities, more things that make me stop and wonder, what this is all really about. So recently I went on this pilgrimage away from my house that got flooded. Family was, everybody was upset. It was just all sorts of just too much energy. And I fled the house and I went down south to Atlanta and Nashville, and I saw my favorite band, Tool, front row, third row, two amazing shows right after they won the Grammys. I mean, I'm right in front of Adam Jones. Like, I got my hood on. He's literally right in front of me. It's like we're the only two people in the room. I felt all this incredible energy at these concerts. And then on the way home, it's kind of this after effect, like, cool, I had that experience, but now it's like back to reality. And just as a passing, talking to my friend Rich, I had mentioned that I've been doing a lot of study of these megalithic sites like Serpent, Mound, that came up when I bought all the stuff that Randall Carlson put out with this cataclysmic cycles and what the pyramids are about and all this other stuff. And one of the things they talked about was Serpent Mound in Ohio. I'm like, I'm in Ohio. I should go visit that one day. And on the way back from this little pilgrimage, my friend Rich said, why don't you stop off at Serpent Mound just to, see what it's about. And for those of you who don't know about Serpent Mound, you really should. This is a site that has an incredible amount of spiritual power. I mean, I can't. Every time I go there, I've been there 3 times now, and every time I go there, I'm like, is it real? Am I really feeling this, or is this something? And yet, every time I go back, it's even more powerful. But when I went there the first time at the end of this trip, it's like an hour and a half outside of Cincinnati and an hour and a half outside of Columbus. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. And driving there, at least the 3 times that I went, it's always been like going into Middle Earth. It's been cloudy and mystical, and the hills are windy. It really reminds me of Lord of the Rings with its topography and the weather that I've experienced. I've only gone a couple times, and so I drove out there with no purpose. I didn't know what to expect or whatever. Drove all the way out there, and I have this Tesla car that I have to be very cognizant of, the battery and the mileage and stuff, because if I go an hour and a half one way and there's no charging around for an hour and a half, I have to make sure I have enough battery. So it was very, it's just a weird experience. So I ended up going up there. I pull up the Serpent Mound, expecting it to be like a park, a tourist thing where at least somebody would be there, right? So I go up there. I get there at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think it closes at dusk, and I pull up to the gate, and I'm expecting to pay, and there's nobody there. So I go in and I park, and I get out, and it's just quiet. like really quiet, to the point where like I don't know if I've heard I guess I haven't been out in nature like this enough, because it's wintertime, it was snow on the ground, there was nobody around. I'm at this spiritual site, it's foggy and stuff, and it was just like as soon as you step out your car, listen to all your music and all the distractions and phone, you're like, wow. This is what humanity would have experienced prior to all these distractions. So I ended up walking the site. The first thing I came across was a burial mound. Obviously it's considered a holy site, not unlike Jerusalem or any of these other holy sites, because it's been consecrated, it's been blessed, it has properties. It's you'd have to be there to see it. But if you don't know what Serpent Mound is, it's in a 1,500-foot long mound that is on top of this unique geographical site, where it's on the edge of a 5-mile wide impact crater from a comet that I think hit like 400 million years ago, when Ohio was still underneath the ocean. And inside there they have all these, I think they're called troglodytes, but one of the oldest living forms of life, fossilized life, that has ever been found are these, troglodytes. And they were, I think, the only creature also to have 360-degree vision. So here we are on a site where a comet hit, where life could have started, right? 450 million years ago. Certainly some of the oldest evidence of life is found there, with these troglodytes and these, I think they're called fake hops or something. So when I got all this information, I ended up learning about it. It was like a download of like too much. Like I was still processing the whole feeling. But the Serpent Mound is on the outcrop of the impact of this 5-mile long comet crater that centers there, and on the edge of it, the impact lifted up the mantle of the earth, this unique, it's a couple 100 feet above the valley floor, and there's a river underneath it and all this other stuff, but it's a unique geographical feature that was created by this comet. But it gets better than that, because Serpent Mound, the way that the mound is created, aligns with the summer equinox, aligns with the vernal equinox. All these sites where the 1,500-foot mound of the serpent is lined up to astrological events that happen there. And it's nothing much to look at. They have a little tower so you can kind of get the grasp of it, but it just looks like a domed grass area. It's nothing like the Great Pyramids where you're sitting there going, oh my God, like this is an amazing site. And yet I think it has more significance than the Giza Plateau. Not only because of the comet, not only because life could have possibly started there, not only because of the geographical, way that the Serpent Mound's up there, not only because of its alignment to the stars and the sun, and that was also found out that it's got a Kundalini 7 thing there, or 7 chakras that are built into it. There's a ton of unique features about this place. But then even when I learned even more, the Wisconsin Glacier Shelf stopped at Serpent Rock, right? So even during the worst of the Ice Age, nature, Earth, spared this site from being crushed and ground under by the glaciers. So now you have a confluence of, comet, start of life, Ice Age, the end of the last prior civilizations before that. Who knows how long back this Serpent Mound goes? It could be, a few thousand years. But from what I've heard and researched, that the river that goes right up to it is a navigable river all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, and that there's easily possibilities that the Aztec and prior Olmecs have traveled up there, and that there was a holy site. And simply because of the great flood that ended the last ice age, wiped out whatever civilization was there. And, it becomes this much larger than life event, at least for me. And so I went up there the one time, I got to tour it, and as I was taking it all in, and the trees were also amazing. So if you start thinking, this is a conscious experience, a spiritual experience, and the trees that are, watching over this amazing, unique site must also be pretty neat. And I mean, they captivated me. I don't know if it was just because of the time of year with their leaves off, or how they formed all these different. It was a really appreciative thing, and it's I'm probably building into something more. A lot of people are going to drive over there and go, Chris, this is it. Like this is all. But to me, it was something very special. And as I finished up touring the site by myself, it was probably an hour. It was freezing up there. I just finished up, and there was a couple that was walking towards me with green hoodies on, and he was an older man, and she was she was younger than him, and they came up to me, and I started to realize that they obviously knew about the site, and they were educating me about it. The man that was responsible for it is an archaeologist. He studied all these troglodytes, and had his findings shown in the Smithsonian, and he's got a rock shop right down the end of the road, like 4 miles away from the site. And I got to experience that this is a man that's dedicated his whole life towards this, and settled. I'm sure he could have gone anywhere, right? You're a scientist, a published scientist. I'm sure he could have had, worked at some college researching this stuff, but eventually he settled down right next to Serpent Mound, and sells rocks there, and does his work there. And Terry, his wife, is a spiritual person, so she's got the spiritual aspect of Serpent Mound, and she found herself brought to this site and has settled down, and I'm sure could have gone many other places and taught many other spiritual things, but has settled down here for a reason. Because the archaeological, the spiritual significance of this site is something that I don't think has been appreciated. So I got to talking to them, and I got to feeling like in this journey that when I do meet people, I do pay special attention, especially when I'm at a place like this, talking to two people who have dedicated their lives to different aspects of this place. So they invited me to their rock shop, and I went to go see it, and it's full of all these amazing, unique rocks and stones and information and stuff, and just to hear the two of them talking from the different aspects of why this site is so important, I was like, oh wow, this is something I gotta dig my teeth into. And I was short with my battery. I didn't really have time. I didn't expect to do this, and I had places to go and people to meet, so I ended up cutting that first meeting off short. But I was already like, wow, I need to look into this more. And I found myself back there, I think a week and a half later, again, touring the site, feeling the energy in the area, understanding that, if we were really looking for truth, if we were really looking for our purpose here on Earth, I think it would be far more important to explore sites like this than it would be to, I don't know. I don't know what would be more important than the potential that this is Eden, that life could have started there 400 million years ago, the impact of cosmic events that could dramatically change and alter all of human history, the fact that we only have 6,000 years of written history when Homo sapiens in this form have been around for 250,000 years in this current form, and that there's been cataclysmic impacts of comets and asteroids and polar shifts and micronovas and all this stuff that has bombarded and destroyed life over and over again. Like, Earth is going to continue to go. We may not. And I think it's important that we actually start focusing our whole view of where we are in this world, not in this egotistic, hey, look at my Instagram account, but more like, wow, we are just a blip of consciousness on this holy planet. That's where I was coming at this. So I spent time with Terry and Tom there, talking with them, and then I eventually came back. And when I got to learn more about it, I realized that this is a very big thing that needs to have a lot more attention to it. So what I plan on doing is I plan on being there for the vernal equinox, which I think is March 20th through the 23rd. I'm going to put a link in the description box below of Terry and all their sites. and they're going to have a ceremony, a peace ceremony where, all of humanity can kind of come together and say, hey, there's only one race, human race. There's only, one Mother Earth. It's, or our Earth. And it's imperative that we work with her and realign our values towards, preserving and protecting and, caring for this planet and the people on it, and away from this current debt and death paradigm that I, have talked about so much on this channel. So then, I go, okay, I got the the cosmic event of, comets that could wipe out life over and over again. You have the possibility that life could have been created here, that could have been brought in a comet. These troglodytes or some, I'm probably killing the name of it, are some of the oldest living fossils ever, and they're found here. I think it's the state fossil of Ohio. It's a very significant thing. Then we have this sacred site that could have been, created by the Aztecs, with this navigable river on this unique outcrop on this 5-mile wide crater, and then all the astrological alignments of it, that it was saved from the icebergs, that all this stuff, and then the spiritual energy that I'm feeling here. I'm like, wow, this is like, I've been to the Vatican, folks, right? The Vatican is an amazing work of what man can do, right? You go in there and you see these amazing feats of what man can create, art, harmonics, sacred space. You feel it. It's an amazing place, but you end up leaving the Vatican feeling small. You end up leaving the Vatican feeling less than, because it's an exaltation of something that you don't really feel that you are. You're not the Pope. You're not the saints. You're not that. It's like a less than, and that they're the high holy ones, right? But when you go to Serpent Mound, it's like you're amazed of what nature can do, right? Here's a storyline that might have started 450 million years ago. How many cataclysmic events have happened since then, and the ice ages, and how many human races have gone up and down through the cosmic shift of time and stuff. And you get there and you start to realize that, I'm just a little conscious blip, that I get to have this experience. So I get through all of this stuff and I'm like, wow, this is a lot to process. And so then Terry, tells me about this, vernal equinox. And then to me, I'm Aries, I'm spring. I've been waiting for spring to come. I've been working out. I've been feeling the energy coming. And I know that this is going to be the big season for me because I feel it. Every spring I get that thing. I'm Aries. I gotta get out and start, making some fire. And then she told me about this crystal skull that's going to be there. And so the only thing I knew about the crystal skulls was from the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. And of course, that's the Hollywood version of it. This idea that there's, these ancient aliens with these crystal skulls that were, transmitting consciousness and stuff through this high technology, right? So I asked him, I go, are these crystal skulls real? Still thinking they look like the alien one in the Indiana Jones. And I knew nothing really about them. And the only one that they know for sure is real is the Hedges one. And the Hedges crystal skull is a crystal skull. And the thing that I found amazing is, and there's been proven that there's a bunch of fake ones out there, right? And there is a possibility that this maybe is a fake too, but it's still an outlier of maybe it's not. And I tend to think that it is real simply because of the unique properties of it and what it is. But you guys have to research it for yourself. But this crystal skull is going to be at the vernal equinox at Serpent Mound. I'm going to be there. And I think it's going to be a pretty cool event that may, if you guys are interested in this part of The Greatest Truth Never Told, and you're away from the silver stuff, and you really are interested in, what can come next when all these hierarchical religions fail, some truth must be there at the bottom of all of it. Like, once we get past all the duality, all of the I'm right, you're wrong illusions that we have. There is going to come to one spiritual reality, one physical reality, one truth, because truth can only have one flavor of it. It can't have 10,000 denominations of truth. There's either one truth or it is not truth. And that's where I feel like we're headed towards. Our monetary system, our power structure, it's not based off of truth. It's based off of division, separation, scarcity, and sin. And I think that somewhere along the lines of researching the absolute origin of life, the high technology that the pyramids certainly embody, and this Mitchell Hedges crystal skull possibly embodies, is something to me far worth more than the Vatican. Like, I don't need to see what amazing stuff that humanity can do, because we're just like children playing with blocks with nuclear missiles. Like, we are not an advanced conscious society by any means. We are just children playing with blocks. And I think it's time for the adults to realize that this current paradigm isn't going to last, that we certainly need to start looking at totally different ways of doing everything. And I think that this is interesting. So when I researched into the crystal skull stuff, I found a lot of stuff that debunked a lot of them, but they had a very hard time with the Mitchell Hedges one. I mean, Hewlett-Packard studied the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull because of the amazing qualities of it. It has a detachable lower jaw. It has the same, everything of a human skull. But the amazing qualities of it, being that it's crystal, that most crystal with our tools and technology have to be cut, I guess, with the grain so it doesn't shatter. This crystal skull was cut without any regard to any of the grain, so that in itself is an amazing aspect of it. That the polish on it shows no machine tooling, that the only way that they think that they can get this fine finish without, on a microscopic level, without anything, was for hundreds of generations of wet sanding the skull over time. Every single nook and cranny of it has been, polished with such amazing things. So then I asked Tom, I'm like, well, where do you think it came from, right? Is it aliens? Is it this? And the thing that seemed to fit best with him is that these skulls, and there's supposed to be 13 of them, and that these 13 skulls are supposed to come together one day when humanity needs it the most. Like, that's when these are supposed to reappear. And apparently there's only one real one. Even the ones that are in, like, the Smithsonian and I think some French museum, they're considered to be fakes. But if this is a real one, and if the legend is that there's 13 real ones, that these were from Atlantis, that these crystal skulls were from an Atlantis civilization prior to the flood, the end of the last ice age. I mentioned earlier that Serpent Mound was spared from the last ice age. The Wisconsin ice shelf ended at Serpent Mound, was spared from it, and yet the end of the last ice age, 10,000 or 12,000 years ago, ended the Atlantean civilization that was there. That's why we have the Atlantic Ocean, folks. Like, these people did exist. The Noah flood did happen. 2-mile-high ice sheets in Canada melted instantly and wiped out all of the coastal cities, raised the the floodplains of all the areas, hundreds of feet. It was a cataclysmic end of whatever civilizations that were birthed during that time prior to that. And that, these pyramids, these crystal skulls are remnants of a higher civilization that existed prior to where we are now. And I think, the way that this plays out, if humans don't do well with their technology like we're doing now, we're going to get wiped out again. And I think it's apparent for people to recognize that the path that we're on will only end in destruction, because it's all based off of separation, scarcity, and sin. That I believe that the quickest and easiest way to turn this around for humanity is a massive revaluation of silver, giving power to the meek. I hope that the meek will start taking conscious looks into their lives so they don't end up creating more of the same unsustainable debt and death paradigm where they're the landlord and they're going to go to Vegas and do hookers and cocaine and all this other stuff. I think that we have the possibility of creating something consciously different, and I would like to draw attention to places like Serpent Mound and the Great Pyramids and Chichen Itza and all these other megalithic sites of our grandfathers and grandmothers pleading to us, look to the stars. Where is your purpose here on earth? It's not to consume, it's not to do this, it's not to sow discord, it's not to create power and profit. It's here to this is a spiritual experience. So if you're interested in this type stuff as well as I am, and trust me, I am far more into this than I let on. I've had much greater experiences than I'm able to share here with you now. I highly implore you to meet me at Serpent Mound, and I think it's in Peebles, Ohio. You can just look it up. During the vernal equinox, which I believe is March 20th through the 24th, that's where they're having all celebrations. I highly recommend that we go there, we have a good time, we share art and stories, and take in the spiritual leaders that will be there and hear their stories, and see what comes of it. I think something really good can come of that, because it's starting with a great basis. It's starting with a great intention, and what can come from that? Anything can happen. Thank you.